when you are looking at a function where your original equation does not give you a one-to-one function, meaning if we took a look at this function right here and we sketched the graph of it, y equals x minus 5 quantity squared. So that's going to be a horizontal shift, 5 units. Okay, and so we look at this graph. When you identify this graph right here, what you wind up seeing is that it is not a one-to-one function. Remember, for it to be a one-to-one function, it would pass the horizontal line test. Right? So it passes the vertical line test, so it's a function, but it does not pass the horizontal line test. So in order for this function right here to have an inverse, what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to restrict the domain so that it can be expressed as a one-to-one function. Okay? And so what we would need to do in a function like this is we would basically need to get rid of half of it, and then what remains is going to be a one-to-one function. Okay? So if we restrict our domain here, okay, so if we take this function and we restrict it so that our x's are greater than or equal to this number 5, now we can find the inverse of it. Okay? And so one of the types of questions you're going to see is, what would you have to restrict on the domain in order to make this a one-to-one function, and in order to make sure that, one, it's increasing, okay, or not decreasing, and two, that it has an inverse. And so the way that you can do that is just to restrict the domain. Here you see, for this particular case, the domain would be in interval notation from 5 to infinity. So if you got rid of half of it and just left from 5 to infinity, you can now find the inverse. And finding the inverse is no different than when you're just asked to find it. Right? You exchange the x and the y. So here I take my f of x, replace it with x. I get y minus 5 squared. Again, when you restrict the domain, it doesn't affect the calculations you use to find your inverse. So I'm going to extract my square root here. That gives me the square root of x is equal to y minus 5. And here, when we add 5 to both sides, I get y is equal to square root of x plus 5. And when I rewrite it, I just rewrite it as this inverse function. Inverse of f is equal to the square root of x plus 5. And that would be your solution.